The motto of Pope St. Pius X was part of our opening prayer today, to renew all things in Christ. That was on his coat of arms, I guess, and part of the mission that he felt God was calling to him as Pope. And I think this renewal, this being renewed, has a lot of different facets to it. And sometimes we've heard recently about one person in the scriptures, the rich young man, or the man who had a lot of possessions. So we hear what Jesus did to try to wrest things away from him so he could open his arms to embrace Jesus. And we hear today some specific things he did for this group of early risers and had something important he wanted to teach them, and it went through this whole process of this parable. And remember, he's speaking this to the disciples. This wasn't just to everybody. These are the leaders that he wanted to make sure that they woke up to this fact. And maybe with this renewal in Christ, we could begin to see that the majority of the workers in today's gospel parable probably were happy. But the first ones weren't so happy. They grumbled because they didn't get what they thought they were going to get. And yet, we have a wider view here of those who, for whatever reasons, maybe didn't have it all figured out, didn't have it, their faith life or whatever it was, where they thought it should be, and God surprised them. If we were going to keep the landowner as God in this parable, surprised them, giving them more than they could have ever imagined, overabundant for the work that they did. They couldn't earn it, and they shouldn't have thought that they could, but he's teaching them. He's asking them to allow themselves to be open to surprise, even if sometimes that surprise is a little painful at first. That the ones that got there early were being singled out in some ways by Jesus. So maybe this is the disciples, the first group, that they thought maybe that they deserved something differently or would be freed from suffering. I'm not sure what it was that they had hoped by being the first, that they wouldn't have to deal with the things that came to people later. I'm not sure, but he's waking them up. He's waking us up to say, look for the surprises. You who are limited, you who maybe don't have it all figured out or aren't there early enough, I'm going to bless you in a way that will be a surprise. And again, majority of the people, the surprise was a happy thing. They got more than they really deserved. And I think that's what Jesus is really helping the disciples to see, and maybe as we would look at the first reading, to seeing that caution of the prophets to the leadership, to say that you've forgotten the very reason why you were called to shepherd the people, to feed them, and here you are feeding yourself. Nourishing yourself. If that has become your concern. So the prophet's job is not to predict the future. It's to say, you've forgotten the past. You've forgotten your call. You've forgotten what God has called you to. And maybe that's part of us learning from our mistakes. Seeing that we thought that this was what I said yes to, but then Jesus kept revealing more. That this was different than I thought it was going to be, and not even what I ever imagined. So how do we stay open to the surprise of God, that he's inviting us to be overabundantly blessed without having to make it happen ourselves? That we welcome it. That's our job, to clear away, to clear anything that would get in the way of this overabundant love, and realize and be thankful for that surprise. So might we welcome this surprise from God today, even if it maybe is a little hurtful at first or painful, to say, okay, Lord, you're teaching me here, and I didn't want to learn that lesson. I didn't want to think that way about myself, but now I see that I'm more able now to be happy for those you're generous with as you continue to work on me and help me welcome the gift of your challenge.